Hi and welcome to Ego Netcast. I am Martin Lindeskog, and today I'm talking to Brian G. Peters of Buffer. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Martin. How's it going today?
Good. Yourself?
I'm doing extremely. Thank you so much for having me.
Great to hear. I will start out reading from your bio, and we'll talk about how we connected. And thanks other peeps at Buffer and others.
That sounds
Brian
great.
Peters on Lyceum, and then you have a G like George in the middle there. And sharing the Buffer Love hashtag on social media at Buffer, blogger for professionals at Go Work Life, at Cal Poly Alumnium, adventures abound with my love, at Kate, and now the last name there, Colombo. Kate May Colombo, and hashtag social smarter, and that's probably the topic here, how to be so smart and social. And San Luis Obispo in California, Brian G. GregPeters.com, and you are following 1801 and 2,690 followers. So, how are you doing, Brian? What's up?
You know, today's a great day, Martin. I'm excited to be here and chat with you. Yeah, I think that social smarter is what I'm passionate about, as you could probably tell from my Twitter account.
Yep. And we could give it a short background here, how we connected. I had an interview and a conversation with John Ferreira of Nimble, and he mentioned your service during the show. And then I reached out to Bufferware, and Julia was connecting, and others, and also we'll see here Hallie Griffiths and Darcy, and then we connected through a service that maybe in some way had resemblance with Buffer, and a virtual assistant using artificial intelligence called X.AI, and Amy, a personal assistant like a robot on the internet. And now I recently saw that 3 days ago you said about the time difference, so it's pretty early in California. But Amy helped it out, and now it's around 6 p.m. here in Europe. And at your place, it's, in the morning, right?
Yes, sir. It's 9 a.m. here. You know, I was curious, that Amy service was pretty cool. Is that something you use for all of your podcasts?
Yes, when I'm doing this, that I'm using this service called Ringer. So we record our conversation through an app called Ringer. And then through that, I do using the booking. And that have helped me mentally very much instead of back and forth with email conversation. I like the email conversation, and sometimes you have to do maybe some hands-on, but you don't have to think about it. So yeah, I do that for the conversation I have. When I do my solo show, of course, maybe I could send out an email to Amy and see, and she could check my calendar if I'm free for myself. But it's when other people are involved. But yeah, and you could do it, of course, if you want to have meetings at offices or at cafes and so on. But I mean, you write it in English. So if I would start writing emails to my friends and colleagues and contacts here in Gothenburg, Sweden, and other places, maybe that would sound a bit strange. But English-speaking guests, it's great service.
That's great. And are you in Gothenburg, Sweden?
Yes, I'm here. I'm also on the west coast here, but another country in Sweden, Gothenburg, Sweden. Yes, the second largest city in Sweden. About how could you say, about 500,000, 500,000 people, depending on your counting.
Right.
And you are. Tell me about your place in California.
You know, so being on the Buffer team has allowed me to work remotely around the world. And so actually currently I am in Vancouver, British Columbia for the summer until the end of September. It's absolutely gorgeous here. I'm actually looking out the window right now and it's raining, which is pretty typical for the Pacific Northwest during this time. But yeah, so I am here in Vancouver for the summer and doing a bit of traveling after that to Chicago and then maybe Denver. Who knows at this point?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and I will contact you through email and others. And we could do that after the conversation, because I listened to your podcast, the lab there, Culture Lab at Buffer. So I listened to the first episode, and then I listened to the latest here. And then Julia reached out and she asked which was my favorite. So I will reply back to her later on. It seems to be like a serial, like a season thing. It was like 13 episodes so far. Yeah, am I right there?
Yeah, great question. So that was actually headed up by Courtney Cedar. She's the inclusivity catalyst here at Buffer. She focuses on a lot of different great things. But yeah, Culture Lab was one of her projects this past quarter. Yep. We're excited to say that we're actually going to move into a social media podcast here pretty soon. But Culture Lab was a great experiment for us, talking about culture. And we met a lot of great people through that Culture Lab podcast, and saw some really fun and interesting conversations come about from it. But yeah, that was Courtney's baby for the quarter. It was amazing.
Okay, and we probably could relate there more about this topic also, because I listened about this culture thing, about values, power values, and also the location and different backgrounds. So you have a great mix. Because I could say that from the get-go. When I listened to it, I did a note to self. I said this: have you seen the movie Pursuit of Happiness with a different spelling?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, so I related to that directly, and also I'm dabbling around with Buffer, and we'll come in that as a personal way of using Buffer, and also how small businesses and solopreneurs could do that, and that probably what lead up to our connection to talk. And I would say that from the get-go, I do the note to self there also. What would you say about this? And now maybe it's putting you here directly on the spot. Auto-magically, and a made-up word, versus real-time social media activities. Do you know a guy called Scott Stratton?
Yes.
So I am in a camp that I want to automate things, but I want to be real-time at the same time. Mm-hmm. Do you get where I'm drifting at?
I do. I love the word auto-magically. That's great. So I guess you can do, I guess my answer in short and simple would be you can do both, but it does take extra work. So I think what's so wonderful about Buffer and, any of the scheduling software programs out there is that social media is very time consuming, as marketers know. It's almost nearly impossible to, if you're trying to put out, if you're a large, small to medium, even large size business, consistent content is key. And that's what Buffer really helps you to do, is be consistent with your content, schedule it out at the best times, et cetera, et cetera. But to be successful on social media, you also have to have that extra, real time, real engagement. And so it's not enough just to schedule or just to post it consistently or at the right time. You actually have to then follow up with all the content that you put out on social media and interact with your fans, your audience, answer questions. And so I guess, thinking about scheduling and real time, it can be one and the same. It just takes a little bit of extra effort and on the part of the person who's actually putting the content out.
Yeah, and same thing. I will probably reach out to you and check out your sites and resources, how to start with Buffer, because I've been a late person there, late to the game, but it could be that my personal feelings about this and how to interact. And I mean, I thank you, John Ferrer, again, that introducing me to it, and also Elaine Smith that have talked about Buffer and others. So I used a service called Hootsuite for my moderating work, and then it was very good to plug in. But then also John Ferreira mentioned about that, how service my favorite social media channel and platform, I think it is also, because it's a distinction between a platform and a channel, I think. That you can have communication and conversation, adding something to the conversation is contrasting to pushing it out, so to speak. But when I see that Twitter and others have, fixed with the API and the code, so it have been harder to do these things, to have a dashboard. And now when I was dabbling, because I only downloaded it yesterday, so I did a test and so on. But then I was, okay, when will it come out? I have to check and so on. But I mean, it's a learning process, of course.
Yes, of course. Yeah, it does take, a while, I guess, to get used to following up with content and learning ways that works best for your schedule to interact with your audience. And I think, that sort of dashboard that you're referring to, that's what, a lot of users use Hootsuite because they do have a quote unquote dashboard for monitoring. But that's also one of the reasons that we purchased, I don't know if you might have seen this in the news, but Buffer purchased a company called Respond in the last year. And so that's kind of our take on what you would call a dashboard. And so that's for monitoring conversations on Twitter, because we put a high emphasis and value on engagement with our audience. So we actually probably send more individual personalized tweets to our audience than we do just content each month. I think we send between 3,000 and 4,000 individual personalized tweets to our audience members and about 500 pieces of content out. So we're actually like 4 or 5 times engaged than we are just pushing content out to on social media.
Yeah, and that's why I got curious and interested about your company and the culture and so on. And also when Julia started out to reach out and then handed over the baton, you could say, to you guys. So, and that was pretty funny to see the communication back and forth and Amy, the robot, helping out there. So, so both personal and you can also have automatically doing it. So we'll come in a bit more of what small business could you use this, maybe after the halftime and so on. But when you say these locations, and also I listened to the podcast about power values, could you tell me about, and we will come back to your personal things also, any products that you have personally and also at work and hobbies and so on?
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, thanks for asking. So I guess at work right now at Buffer, we have a lot of great things going on. We have 4 or 5 people on our marketing team so it's a very small, tight-knit group, but we do a lot of fun things. So right now we're focusing on the Buffer social media podcast, which is absolutely going to be fantastic. Hopefully I'm leading that project, and I have a few teammates. Haley, that you actually chatted with, Haley Griffiths, she's I would guess we would call her my co-partner, my co-host. She's helping me.
You have to interact there. You have different, so-called business titles in a bit funny way. So you could tell me more about that also.
Yeah. So she's actually, we take a very unique approach to titles at Buffer. So she's actually PR crafter. And, I'm the standard social media manager. We couldn't quite find a unique name for social media manager, but we have, happiness heroes and inclusivity catalysts and Twitter heroes. And we just have a bunch of fun names. Yeah.
I will give you one for so-called free then. I have been called a social media evangelist by a friend and an author and speaker called Stefan Engeset in Stockholm. And he has written a book about PR and how you do it in a smart way that I will direct you to. So
yes, please.
He has called me because this thing about expert and so on, I could probably call myself that because I've done my 10,000 hours at least as Gladwell. Because I started blogging in 2002, podcasting 2006, etc. And I'm not also religious, but I love this powerful word like evangelist, that you are spreading the good word about this, how you could use new media. So that's why I like that somebody else called me that.
I actually love that's the second time in 2 days now that I've heard the word social media evangelist, and it's got a nice ring to it.
Yeah, I think Tamara is probably one first, and she is, an real expert in social media, Tamara, and written books and so on, and great blog posts about it. I think she was called that also and mentioned that. So please do. So because I studied organization leadership in America, so I'm alumni at Southern New Hampshire University in Manchester, New Hampshire, on the East Coast. And then we learned the distinction there between a manager and a leader. I mean, you could be both, but also I think in this project, what I could hear the vibes and so on is that you're leading a new project that hopefully will be an ongoing thing. And feel free if you want to bounce something back and forth regarding podcasting and so on. So,
yeah, I would love that. Yeah, we are quite new to the podcasting world, and so I'll probably send a few questions your way.
I will link in the show notes about the article that you posted regarding your new show there. That was your special project there with the Culture Lab. So and there it was a long article with what you have, because that's what you have done. You have shared and giving lots of advice for free with mentioning podcasting tools, tips, etc. and so on. So that's, I mean, I have a personal interest to learn how could I use Buffer in my podcasting workflow, because I have experience from it, but you learn new things all the time, and you more you know, you more things you come up with. How could you do this process in a smarter, leaner, more automatically way, but still have a personal touch, so to speak. So I want to focus on the positive thing. But I mean, I have some experience about what happened with podcasting now when marketers are out there. And maybe we could do that off record also and talk more about that in the future.
Yes, sounds great.
But you probably know where I'm going there too. And I like a healthy debate also. And we will have a discussion there around halftime about the trader principle. So do you have any... You have this podcasting projects, and that I think probably takes a lot of time for you. Any more thing that you want to tell about Buffer? What's going on now?
Yeah, sure. So I think the other, I guess, big bucket of content that we're focusing on in Q3 of 2016 is video, social media video, and video marketing, and that's something that in the years that Buffer has been on social media, we haven't really experimented with and really focused on. And so another, I guess, one of the projects, and it's funny you mentioned, talking about managing versus leading. And I think that's one thing, being a smaller team like we have on the marketing team at Buffer, it's everybody sort of, even, across Buffer, everybody sort of leads their own projects, which actually gives us a nice kind of range to do what we are interested in and passionate about, but then we also have, manager level that help us to kind of guide to, goals and all that. So yeah, video marketing and social media videos, definitely a Q3 project that I'm leading and having a lot of fun experimenting with.
Mm-hmm. Will you do live streaming and so on also? Because I have I discussed that, and it's great that it's worked so well here with the Ringer thing and so on. That's a tool that have helped me a lot for recording. When I talked to Tim Sinclair about when you listen to podcast, you can listen whenever you want. And then you have this other trend that's coming, that you consume things in live streaming. So and there you have this with videos and so on, but compared with television. So it's interesting what you could do it at your own time and own leisure, but also you have things like Snapchat and others that is in the moment.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, I think those are the big ones. And Instagram stories just being released, that is huge for Instagram. Yeah, but I think we've been experimenting with Facebook Live video. Yeah. And we've seen a tremendous increase in organic reach to our posts and likes and engagement. And so that's something we're definitely going to focus on more, is that thought of live broadcasting and ways we can bring our audience in real time. Periscope's another great example for Twitter, where, as you live stream an event. And I think we're starting to see that more and more with brands, is, being real and authentic and bringing their audience in real time. And that's what Facebook Live has been great for. But yeah, definitely experimenting with all sorts of video this quarter.
And when we got, I think it was Helly that asked about that. And Darcy also on Twitter. What kind of some episodes from my podcast work in order to preparation for you guys to listen. And then I gave some examples, and one was Pierre de Boyos on Simana Analytics, and he's an expert on social media analytics and stats and data and so on. So have you seen that? Have you how do you say, evaluated and researched and doing some white papers and whatnot on the sharing things? Because I mean, when I saw Buffer the first time, I think it was on blogs, and I wonder, okay, what's that black symbol with 3 papers or whatever you could say stacked, and then you saw a number, and then, for example, I have it very simple shared function on my Ego Netcast website that's powered by Squarespace. So I mean, I've used the default function, and I think it's Twitter, Facebook, and some others, but not Buffer as a default. But I think it's a long list, so you could click and find Buffer also. But then, I mean, Twitter stopped with showing statistics as a default. Have you any ideas and thoughts how you see the different social media channels and platforms using Buffer, and which are most popular or trends that's some upcoming and some maybe maturing and so on that you could share?
Yeah, that's a great question. We just very excited to announce just released our integration with Instagram. So essentially you can schedule Instagram posts. A lot of the channels, as you may know, Martin, just due to the API limitations, and Instagram is they do not fully allow you to schedule posts across, from start to finish, but our new integration allows you to at least schedule posts. But if you look at, I guess, how people are using Buffer for social media, it's about a 25% share across I guess what you would call maybe the 4 major platforms: Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. But we do integrate obviously with Pinterest, and then Snapchat is not available for integration because they're a authentic, or a real-time platform, and their API is quite closed. But yeah, if you look at the people or the share of users, it's the big 4: the Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And we actually just released a really, really cool blog post that I'll have to share with you. We studied over 16 million posts and 100,000 brands on social media, and came up with some pretty interesting findings through all that. How often brands post per week, what types of posts get the most engagement for brands, that sort of study that we post on our blog. And everything we post, we don't do much experimenting with white papers or ebooks, because part of our Buffer values and our culture is that idea of providing content for free. And so we haven't really experimented with what you would call, I guess, like download gating, where we ask for name and email before a user gets a piece of content. So you can find these huge, probably should be ebooks or white papers on our blog for free. But yeah, there's a lot of great resources on there about how a brand share, what brands share, what's getting the most engagement, what's working and what's not.
Great. Sounds like, and I like what you said there about email and all the contact information and what's the value. I mean, and that's what I have been, struggling and thinking about also for my newsletter and an upcoming site that I'm doing, that I want to put like an umbrella for all my interests and passions and works and so on and projects. And have it as a lead thing also, but also, how would you say, in a nice way.
Right.
I recently started, and I could include that as in the show notes also, program called The Thistle to start a blog that matters. And I joked with myself and said it's at time for me has been a blogger since 2002 to create or start something that really matters, so to speak, that could lead to business and so on. But I have also great experience for doing this, sharing things for free. You have an expression in Swedish called everything between the sun and how to say, the ground. So that I have done. I have interest in and that was also John and I discussed about personal interest like cats, chili pepper, tea, and so on, and that connecting also. So I must say that I like that very much, your style and how you reach out to your customers and potential customers and others in the industry.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Yeah, and I think that's important part of what makes Buffer. And I think that's one of the reasons that we have a following the way we do. One thing we don't have is we don't have salespeople either. And that's definitely a digression from the traditional startup / software sales company.
Yeah.
And so, not having salespeople and not having, I guess, these sort of like ebook, enter your email address to get this resource is definitely makes us different. And there's been times where we question that, and it's definitely healthy to question whether that's the right way to go or not. And to continually look and to see if we're missing out on certain opportunities or not. But, as of now, we're continuing down that path.
Great, and I must say, and give you a personal thing there, and I try to be a nice sales guy, but I'm a former purchaser, so you could imagine what I have met during my days.
Right.
Regarding sales people. So I mean, so I like your attitude to that, and I will do a segue here. Do you have like Zappos, that you have a huge library of business books and personal development literature and so on?
Yeah, personally myself.
Yeah, yourself and at the company or something like that. Yeah.
So one of the apologize for continually bringing up Buffer stuff, but at Buffer we have access to problem. Thanks. One of the really cool perks we have is unlimited Kindle books, so we can literally order any sort of book we want online. So that definitely is an incentive for Buffer employees to read. Personally, I heard you mention Malcolm Gladwell earlier in the show. I'm a big fan of his and his podcast. Currently reading Blink, and that's an excellent book in the instant decision making, and we read a lot of other books on business practices and leadership, and I also like some nonfiction once in a while to take my mind off everything. But I think reading is a big part of being a Buffer employee, and I don't know really anybody at Buffer that doesn't like to read a ton. So that's definitely a big area that we focus on here.
Yeah, and great. And I didn't ask you for that full disclosure. So it was funny because when you mentioned Kindle, and Kindle is owned by Amazon, and Amazon, they own also Audible. And one of my affiliates that I have is Audible Trial. So I will read a short sentence, and they say here when they give instructions how to say it, that you could do it in your own way. So I will do that. So Audible, you could find there if you want to have a free trial and listen to a book on audibletrial.com/EgoNetcast. And I will read like a mid-roll placement here because it's a half time. So Audible is offering our listeners a free audiobook of your choice and a free 30-day trial membership. Just go to audibletrial.com/EgoNetcast and choose from over 180,000 audio programs. Download a title free and start listening. It's that easy. Go to audibletrial.com/EgoNetcast. That's audibletrial.com/EgoNetcast. So now the listener should know it and get started today. And then why Audible? Because we have competition here in Sweden that we could have a discussion about also. About audiobooks. Audible content includes so many programs, and now they also have this. They call it not podcast, but they call it. What is it now? I will figure it out and put it in the show notes. But it's similar to podcast, but it's more like an audio snippet of books and articles. For example, it's included Wall Street Journal, I think, in your Audible trial. So you could, if you have an Audible account, and I get this every month, a book. So this Maxwell Gladwell, what was it? Blink, right?
Blink, yep.
Yeah, so I will check that out. I have a long wish list of books to read and so on. And
don't we all?
In the future, I sent the email guest template, and there probably will be a guy that will fit your, how do you say, style. Chris Raymer, do you know him?
I do not actually.
I learned him from Twitter when he was having like a t-shirt company, and then he was headhunted to a coffee roastery, and then now he's in academia, and he's written a book called Happy Work in One Word. So check out that book, and I will see if that's on Audible also.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, you're welcome. So now during halftime, and it was some time ago, it was Super Bowl, and John and I, we talked about that also. Common friend here is now the name is gone for that. Brent Leary that interviewed John Ferreira, and he said something about New England Patriots. I learned about American football during my college time there at East Coast. Do you watch American football?
I do, Martin. I'm a big football fan.
Yeah. So may I ask which team?
You know, I am from a spot in California that doesn't quite have a team, but we just signed the Los Angeles, or I guess it was the St. Louis Rams, but are going to become the Los Angeles Rams. So I'm quite happy about that.
But you're welcome to root for New England Patriots also. You could do that.
That sounds good. I think you just recruited me.
That's good. So have you read about this trader principle?
You know, I did. I hadn't heard about it before I came on the show, but I read up on it this morning. It was quite interesting.
Great. Any thoughts, ideas, comments?
You know, I think the first thing that came to mind was marketing when I read this. And I don't know if that's what was supposed to come to mind. But it really resonated with me thinking about, you know, a man or a woman trading his or her skills to an employer. I don't know why. That was the first thought that came to mind when I read the trader principle.
Interesting, yeah, because it's a freely exchange there between an employer and an employee, and also with trade, and also as we are doing now. I mean, nobody has forced us to talk to each other here. We have done that freely. So yeah, I appreciate your thoughts and comments there, and also I will include that in the show notes so you could read. And I could recommend, if you haven't read anything by Miss Rand yet, that could be a great summer reading for you.
All right, is that that's the objectivist ethics? Okay, great.
Yeah, and her she has written novels also. The Atlas Shrugged, and The Fountainhead, for example.
Oh yes,
so, yeah. So it's great, and IT and tech and startups have said that they have been inspired by her writings. So it could be worth checking out. And
that sounds like a great read.
Being a student of her philosophy for a long time, and that's what I want to do with my podcast. I'm saying that I'm trying to spread better ideas regarding new media, business philosophy, and the good life, including tea. So I love it. I will ask you about that also at the end. So what's, Brian, your future plans yourself? I mean, we know about the podcast thing, and I'm very interested to hear more about that and when it's launching and getting live, and I will spread the good word about that. You know, my podcast, you could listen on a standalone app. So if you search on Google Play, on Amazon Store, if you have a Fire phone, I mean, it's popular in North America, I think, but I don't know so much around the world. But and then, of course, as I am an Apple fanboy, on Apple Store. So if you search on Ego Netcast, you could download the app for free. So have you played around that with different podcast and podcaster catchers? I mean, on iPhone, Podcaster app is default. So.
Yeah, you know, I think that's the one and only app that I use to find podcasts. And I'm actually looking at the app right now. It's just too good. I love it. Is there any other ones out there I should know about?
Yeah, I could. Besides my own app, if you want to listen to my podcast.
And you said that was EagleNet.
EagleNetcast, right? Yeah. And you search for that. So I mean, it's powered by Libsyn. That's one of the hosting companies for podcasting.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up. We actually use Libsyn ourselves.
Yeah, great. Yeah, they've been around for a long time, and great service. Elsie and Rob and others there at Libsyn. So I mean, then you could. I have a package there that you have. I mean, big amount of files, and then the app is included. So you could pick that as one thing. I mean, again, for the promotion thing. I mean, for me is that I could ask somebody that, okay, if you don't know how to do with an app, I mean, search on App Store if you don't know about podcasting or iTunes or whatever. And it could also be a fun game with your friends. You could say, "Show me your phone," and then search on my for my podcast app. But I could recommend you to. I listened to your to Culture Lab on Overcast. And I recommend you to, because that's on the iPhone, I recommend you to download that, and then you could donate if you want, like the extra features. They are, for example, I talk pretty low, so you could, how to say, beam up your sound. And also, if you talk slowly, you could speed up your talk in a natural way. When I listened to your folks there, they talked pretty quick, so you didn't have to. But I did it for fun anyway, because I had a walk around before this conversation, so I had to speed it up to, I think, 2 times or something like that.
That's excellent. That's a cool feature.
I mean, I think you should listen often in a natural way. But I mean, if you have more in a hurry, or you have a long podcast, because I try to have an interview and conversation like an hour, but it doesn't have to do that. I mean, it could be shorter, it could be longer. But if you're on a commute, or if it's a long show, you could use this feature and speed up it. Up to, I think, to 2.5 or even 3 or something like that. So
excellent. Well, thanks for the tip there.
Yeah. So any more there regarding future plans, and also if you have any idea about future guests and topics, somebody that you would like to listen to.
You know, that's a good one. I have been intrigued recently by marketing psychology podcasts, and I don't know if there's one in particular that I'm thinking about, but I'm always interested to hear professors or psychologists come onto podcasts and talk about business or marketing philosophy. I don't know, they bring a certain scholarly viewpoint that I think you can't quite get from a lot of different. It sounds like you might be in academia yourself, but I don't know. I don't have a name in particular.
But I will look for that and see. And now it's with this thing with names, but a person that worked early on, Forrester, and wrote a very good book together with a co-author called Groundswell. I recommend that. And that's, I mean, both academic and practical in the same way. So
excellent.
But I will include that in the show notes. But I will. I mean, again, happy work, Chris Raymer. He is now in academia. So I mean, if you reach out to him on Twitter, Chris CHRIS Raymer on Twitter, I will do that also. He will probably give you some tips there.
Awesome.
And you never know. Maybe he has something that also lurking with podcasting and so on. I know that he has a second book in the works. So and I'm guessing it could have something with the area that you are interested in.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll be sure to reach out to him after the show. Yeah,
great. So anything else there when it comes to, we talked about white paper and so on, but do you have anything, resources or something that you want to share to the listeners and the readers of my blog, and also fans of Buffer and Ego Netcast?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. I appreciate the opportunity to share. So we're posting 3 to 4 new posts, and I guess what maybe the listeners might be interested in knowing is on our Buffer blog, and that's blog.bufferapp.com. Is we tend to set a very high standard for the type of posts that we put on our blog. So we don't write anything usually less than 1,500 or 2,000 words, because we are big believers that you probably can't say a lot in less than that. And so we actually just came out with a complete, always updated guide to Facebook advertising, which is about 5,000 words. So everything you ever wanted to know about Facebook advertising is up on our blog now. And there's a ton of other great stuff on there. And that's, like I said, blog.bufferapp.com. And I mean, there's everything you want to know about social media marketing. And we also have an open section on our blog that talks about culture. And we are very transparent in everything we do at Buffer. So you can go on there and read about our monthly reports, revenue, team member growth, team member losses, all that sort of thing. So yeah, we're very proud of our blog. It is our main asset, and we love to share that whenever we can.
Yeah, and I look forward to that for a future podcast also, because I got listened to this first pilot episode, the first, and then the 13th. I got a sense of that you have this theme of transparency and openness in a positive way. I mean, it could be very political correct also, but in a good way. That you are open what you're doing and learning from your mistakes and so on. I for example, wrote an article for Open Forum, American Express forum, about what I learned from my mistakes and trials and errors and so on with my first startup, together with some people, trying to create third place between your home and your office. I was personally inspired by an article in The Economist about the coffee culture in the 17th, 18th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century there. When people went to certain cafes, and there it was catering to different target groups and different interests. So, for example, I think it was one of cafe was the start of exchange in London of commodities and so on. Another was for people interested in philosophy, politics, and so on. Another was for arts and writers and so on. So you went to special cafe in order to get your interest. Right. And there it was a free exchange of ideas and so on. So I think that's an interesting way. And then we tried to build a business around that. The hard thing and the challenge was that it was pretty unique, and it could be hard to so-called market to sell it and get something for it. So then I wrote a thing about what I learned about from that experience. So I think that's a good thing.
And that was on Open Forum, you said?
Yeah, I got an offer from Anita Campbell of Small Business Trends to write for them some years. Now it's some years ago, because they had an account there. So that was nice. I wrote several articles there for American Express there for the Open Forum. So,
yeah, I love that resource. That's a great one.
Yeah. And I mean, it will be interesting to see other sources like that, and that we could probably have, that you said quality, and that's what the Fizzle thing is, their motive to have a good quality content. Then we could discuss what's good quality content and what's giving
right,
effect.
And then there's that discussion.
Yeah, but still to have a debate about that is pretty interesting, and also, I mean, what's length and so on, and yeah, I think that's a good thing, and that could be leading up also to my favorite beverage, tea, because I'm writing a book series on tea. And there I want to have it illustrated by a friend that also have done work for me, blog banners and logotypes, and also a caricature of myself. So if you go to my site there, Ego Netcast, you see a caricature of myself with a cap on, baseball cap, and a microphone in my hand. So that's Jan Cox, and he will illustrate my book. And book series. And if you think about like a children books theme, and I listened to, and who was that? Yeah, it was Story Brand. That's another podcast that I could recommend. And they talked about with the guy who has written this 1 Minute Manager, and they talked about how they reached out to children's books author in order to explain how to be a manager in 1 minute, and that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that is neat.
So I will include that also. Do you have any tea drinkers at your headquarters and spread around the world?
We do. Actually, we have a big fan base of tea drinkers at Buffer, that's for sure. I know I've been drinking a lot of tea in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. And, usually, in California, they have chai tea, of course, but in Vancouver, they have a delicious tea called chai rooibos. Don't probably not pronouncing that correctly, but it's like a chai spiced.
Yeah. And rooibos, I will cover that tea, so-called tea, in book 8 because that's the plant from South Africa, and they often use it. It's called the red bush, so they use it because it's not any caffeine in it, so it's like a substitute or alternative to tea. But it has been so popular and common that you say red tea. So yeah, and chai is the short for chai masala, Indian, for spices. It's a special spice with black tea and herbs and spices and so on.
So, well, I'm glad I said that then, because that was interesting. Yeah, it's interesting.
And it's also a very old word for tea. So I have, for example, friends, Persian friends, and chai is a tea word in Persian for tea. So,
really?
Yeah. So it's an interesting area there, and now you probably understand. But I'm a pretty interested in this.
I was going to say you are very knowledgeable on tea, and I love it. That was awesome.
And I say, as you said, the word love. I am an amateur. I am a lover of this field. And this is what I'm grappling with to create a book series, because it will not be a Bible, so to speak, or the manifesto, or maybe a manifesto, because it will be some philosophical ideas in it also. But it will be the, how do you say, the definite guide to tea, because I know others have already done it that will do it in the future. But it will be more like a journey and a story that you could enjoy over a cup of tea when you're drinking or giving as a gift. So that's
well, that sounds lovely. Thing. I mean, even just talking about what you talked about there and like the origin of chai and what it means to different cultures, it sounds like there's a lot of deep meaning behind tea.
Yeah, it is. It is. So is tea your favorite beverage, or do you have any other beverage? It could be, of course, depending on the situation and so on.
Yes, I would say it mostly depends on the situation. Is it a Friday night? No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually I've been trying a lot of kombucha lately, which is definitely taking the Western world by storm. That's for sure.
And it's funny that you mention this, and this is not, as I said, recorded in advance. I have a good friend called Palle Frid Svensson. He is experimenting in kombucha, and that's real tea. So that will be in book 7. First, I have to do book first in order to get this crowdfunding campaign. But you understand, and this idea I got from the illustrator. He said, instead of doing one book, why don't do a whole series? And it have several advantages. You could continue the conversation. In the end, you could earn more money, maybe, and you could have a conversation between the books, and you build something over time. Because otherwise, it will be what will you exclude, what will you include, etc.
Right.
And kombucha, I have learned pretty recently, and that's real tea. And you could use black, green, whatever. But then and this is where it comes a bit interesting, and maybe some listeners maybe wonder a bit. It's like an active bacteria culture. So it's like that you have sourdough or something like that, or artisan bread. So you have to keep this culture living, so to speak. And then the sugar, the tea is eating up the sugar. I mean, I'm explaining it in a very simple way. And then you get lots of health benefits and so on. But it's almost an art to take care of this, because you can't only let it sit there for some time and then pick it up a couple months later, because then it could be something else than kombucha.
It looks it looks a bit strange when it's in the bottles, that's for sure.
Yeah. But it's a tea, but it's a different kind of doing this. So I want to add that in one of these books. Okay, so do you have special places in Vancouver and in California that's serving this?
So we have pretty much all of the coffee shops around Vancouver and California have started to adopt kombucha. And so now they even have it on tap pretty much everywhere you go.
Yeah, because it's almost, talking about Friday night, if it's wine or other beverage, maybe beer, it could almost have like a fruity or citrusy thing that you can have in an IPA beer or something like that.
Right. It
or
has
probably
like that.
In California. What's this? And I'm not sponsored by them, but we could mention them anyway. I mean, what's this great? Now it's not called microbrewery anymore. It's called craft beers, right?
Yep, craft.
In California, in San Francisco, you have a great company there with small bottles. What are they calling?
Yeah, microbrew and craft brew. We have, there's
tons,
too many to names. Yeah.
But I will have to search for that. But it looked like a maritime symbol. Like
Anchor Steam.
Yeah, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and others. So I mean, that's interesting. And if you have any tips on other beverages like beer, wine, whatever, please give a shout out or send on Twitter or an email, and we could include that also.
Will do, yeah, certainly. Yeah. And I would love to extend just a quick invitation to drop us a link to your crowdfunding campaign when you get that started with your T-Book. I'd be happy to drop that into our Slack channel and promote it to our Buffer employees.
Great. I appreciate that very much because I want to spread the good word. And talking about Slack, I mean, in a way, I'm interested in new shiny gadgets, but I'm also not hesitant. That's the wrong word, but I'm also that I want to touch it. I want to write by hand and so on. So, for example, I support a crowdfunding campaign called Rocketbook. Mm-hmm. Have you heard about that?
Is it similar to like those bullet journals?
Similar, but with this book, and I try to bullet journals also because my favorite is like Moleskine to write in scheduling and so on. But then I put it in my iPhone and so on also. But this is like a notebook, and then you write it, and then you could use different symbols to send. So that this there you have this automagical thing also. So then you could send to like Dropbox or email or some other source. Like notes or meetings, notes from meetings and so on. And the thing is, when you have filled up the book, you could put it in your microwave and then reuse it because you use a special pen called friction pen. So it's ink, but you could erase it.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, of course, you could buy more books if you have different projects and so on, but it's a good quality paper and so on. So I supported that crowdfunding campaign. And that's interesting to think because my background is, manufacturing. I was a purchaser in the welding industry. I mean, this project is not heavy technically, but still it is. I mean, the first iteration, they said, okay, we have to go back to the writing boards because the book cover is it's igniting when you put it in the microwave. So that's not so good. I mean, I'm joking with it. Maybe it's overstating it. So, I mean, it took from a day I put the money, and I think I was not the first one, but I mean, a year before it was delivered. And my challenge is that I need the money for the illustrations, and then it will come over time. But it's interesting how now in modern times how you could support things that you know about, like and trust and want to support.
Right.
So, and I have a feeling that I will get a hang of Buffer later on and use it as a tool in my personal work life and in business and so on. Do you have any, offer or something because I saw that, and if you want, you could talk a bit more about that for solo entrepreneurs, small business owners, because you have different business accounts, and that's a good thing for, how are you making money and how will you stay in the future? Because you could have a certain amounts of accounts and so on, but then you have extra feature. Could you, tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, so we'd be happy to. So you can sign up for free at Buffer anytime you want as an individual. You get access to every social platform. We do not have, you're allowed to have a Facebook, one profile per social platform on our free plan. And then we have, every level going up from there. We have an awesome plan, a small plan, a medium, and a large plan. So we actually do offer free 30-day trials for Buffer for Business. So we'd be happy to have you come try out the product. That gets you access to multiple profiles on each platform, unlimited scheduling, analytics. We have a great analytics platform that allows you to, manage and monitor all of your social media efforts in one spot. We have a really, really cool tool available with all of our plans that actually allows you to go in, put how many times you want to post per day on each platform, and it will tell you what the optimal times are based on previous interactions from your audience, which is something I use daily. I love that tool. And we have also a free image creator tool called Pablo. So if you go to pablobybuffer.com, you'll see our image creator tool. And like I said before, we also have Respond, which is Respond by Buffer. And that's about it. But yeah, we have levels or plans ranging from $10 a month all the way up to $399 a month for enterprises and agencies. So we'd be happy to have you try our business plan for free today. And I hope that didn't sound too salesy, but we would love to have you on our buffer. Yeah.
No, it sounds good. So, and we will keep it in the recording. So.
Okay. Thank you, Martin. Thank you.
Yeah. So I like that, and that's at the end. I have that point like a call to action, and for me is that you go to egonetcast.com/support, and there you could see how you could support the show, and also spread the good word and listen how you listen to the podcast, etc. So anything else that you want to end with? Any thoughts, ideas, any things that you will do next?
You know what, Martin? That is a great question. And I would encourage any small business owner listening now to not be scared of social media and give video a try this year. It is definitely the hottest thing out right now. So get on Snapchat, get on Instagram stories, and give video a try.
Yeah, and I will also include a thing about that. And now I don't remember what it was called, but I will include it in the show notes. It was Elaine Smith that had a video on YouTube about it. It was a catchy name, but now it's blank. If you have like a street performer, and then I think it started with a B. Brooker or something like that. Then you could also do a video about when you're doing something like a tea tasting or whatever, or some musical thing or whatever.
Yeah, well, BuzzFeed did a really cool example of a Facebook Live performance. They had an actual live dance battle on Facebook Live, and in the comments, they were asking people to vote and rate the dances. So it was like a live, I don't know, have you heard of like American Idol or anything?
Yes.
Yeah, so it was like a live version of a performance.
Version of that too, yeah.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, Simon Cowell, he's from Great Britain, isn't he? So, I mean, just doing things like that and having that's what's great about live is you can make your audience an active participant in whatever you're doing, like a tea tasting, have people vote on what their favorite tea or rate the certain type of tea you're drinking on a 1 to 10 and that sort of thing.
And now I search here on my iPad at the same time. It's called Busker, rewarding live videos. I like the slogan there. So you could do a video, and then people could reward you by sending like a tip or graduation or something like that, or donation on PayPal, I think.
So, that is very cool. Yeah, I'm looking it up right now as we speak.
And they are located in Los Angeles also, busker.co. And CO is Colombia.
I've always wondered what CO was.
Yeah.
Do you know what IO is?
It's not something in, something out, but it's in some Indonesian small Excellent. Islands or something like that.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah, so, great. So I think with that I will take a sip here of matcha green tea. And have you had breakfast yet, or what's your next meal?
I have. It is 10 a.m. this morning. I'll probably go for a little fruit basket. And, I just tried matcha green tea for the first time the other day and loved it.
Great. When we could talk more about that, because I'm a distributor of a product here called for matcha green tea.
Yeah,
that's very handy that you could use. Like I have it here in a bottle, and you could have serve it warm or cold, or for example in like a smoothie or something like that.
Right.
And it has lots of health benefits to it, because you consume. I like regular tea. I mean, I am big black tea drinker, and I've done my own tea blend with that, black teas. But here you consume, then you have it through the leaves, tea leaves, like a tea bag or in a kettle. But here you drink the tea, the whole tea. So they have done studies about that, and in Japan they have used this in ceremonies and for a long time. So, and I know it's very popular in America. You probably have places for matcha, but serving only matcha in different forms.
Yes, of course. Yeah, there's tea is becoming quite popular in America, and it was popular for a long time, but seemingly in the last year or so, even more.
Yeah, great. And we will talk more about that, because I haven't been on the West Coast, so I want to go there someday and see.
Well, you're always welcome. That's for sure.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. When you could give me tips on tea places.
Yes, of course. So, are you not a coffee drinker then?
I'm joking. I will buy a domain. I will not say which, but I could say it. I mean, I will. You have an ending domain like CO, but you have a domain ending coffee. But no .t yet. But I will buy something with and play with coffee. Say something about tea and .coffee, so you could figure out what that could be. More like a joke, because at this place that I talked about, that was called Blue Ship Cafe and Business Center, I was a barista in training. So, I mean, we leased like an espresso machine, like how do you say, in Swedish you call it gruppa. You have how do you say, handles you could have. Mm-hmm. So you could serve espresso. So I know how to make an espresso. I mean, I know that it takes like 20 seconds or something like that in a pressure, and then you should drink it in it like you do in Italy and so on, within a minute or something like that. That's the whole style. So one of my ideas is that coffee is for the kick, and tea is for the ceremony or for contemplation or focus and so on. But of course, it could be it could be different things. And I like coffee, as I said, when it's like an espresso with a little milk, like macchiato, mm-hmm. or cortado with half and half, and of course latte and cappuccino and so on also. And that's, I mean, I said that I was a barista in training, and I was also a member of the Barista Association. But I mean, if you want to excel in this, it's a it's a lifetime work to do all these patterns and mix it, the milk and so on. And so I drink it. I drink good coffee also. But I'm very enthusiastic and tea drinker. So, and yes. You know, I mean, in Sweden here, coffee is the most popular beverage. It's probably in the world. I think it's Finland that's drinking more coffee, but then it's Sweden. So.
I did not know that. Yeah, and I was surprised.
Per capita, yeah.
I was surprised when I traveled.
And of course, in America, we have one Starbucks here in Gothenburg, and I go there. I am a regular member there, customer. So I like them, and I like the service-minded and the style. And it was interesting. Have you heard about that story? And that probably could relate to your people there. Employees and freelancers and so on at Buffer. When Schultz, his name, started Starbucks, I think, maybe something else. But it was one time when they said that, okay, now we have, we have, how to say, missed our direction. So we are selling everything else than coffee, and we, you know.
Right.
So they said one day they closed every Starbucks in America and said, now back to basic. Now we should, because they had automatically coffee machines and so on. I mean, you could, in Italy, you could use a lever, or how to say, a handle, do it totally manually. But then it's pretty, I mean, take some effort and some energy and some power to do it, and it could be risky also because it's it could spring back to you and so on.
Right.
But generally it's half automatically. So you have this, when you press a button, it start to pour. But then you have to do manual thing with pack the coffee and count how long it is and so on. But then I think they did totally automatically, and then they in a way lost their spirit of the whole thing. So they closed, and you could probably search for that. They closed the stores for one day. I don't know how long it was now, and then said back to basic, and now we will go back to the coffee foundation.
It's a great move by them.
Yeah,
it's a great lesson.
And then, of course, I mean, and I believe in competition, so we have lots of competition out there, and that's how it should be. So
agreed.
Yeah, good. With that, so have a good one, Brian. It was a pleasure to talk with you and have a conversation, and talk soon again.
That sounds great, Martin. It was a pleasure talking with you today, and thank you so much for having me.
Yep. Thank you very much, and cheers, and talk soon again.
Cheers.